It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we head towards the great sports weekend. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, the venerable John Riley, broadcasting from left field with his opinions, and we hope you'll stay with us for the next calendar hour. A ton of different things that we're going to discuss. Our Thursday podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center. 9 stores in San Diego County. If you got projects for 2024, think about them when it comes time for materials. Think about them if you want ideas, if you need a consultant. DIXIELINE. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido, they've been in business since the 1970s. We all will need help with our eyes, if not today, somewhere down road. From vision test to specialty treatment, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. John Riley, good afternoon. We got a ton of topics on the table. Before we do that, let's talk business. Let's talk about what happens when we're done arguing with each other. We bring the third member of the triangle in, the fans, the followers on our live stream, introduce to everybody what Fans Forum is all about.
Yeah, Fans Forum is your chance to talk to Lee. You got a question or comment about the world of sports? You know, we're going to be talking about the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA playoffs. If you got a comment or question, just drop it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
And we started something new vis-a-vis my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. If you check that every morning, you'll get a ton of written information. But, John, there's an orange box on the homepage. Explain to all of the people on live stream why they should sign up in that orange box.
Yeah, so if you sign up, you're going to be part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. And what this means is that you're going to get content that we're using to basically supplement what's going on with the podcast. Lee writes a tremendous amount. His One Man's Opinion column, the best 15 minutes in sports, we send that out to the people that are subscribing. Plus, we got some fun things planned for 2024. And oh my God, it's May. We got to get going.
So check my website. Join us there. Want you to share, tell everybody what we're doing. We want you to subscribe. So therefore, every time we put something up on my YouTube channel, and John does it in the middle of the night, you'll get notifications, so you'll know there's something new to go search out. John, we got a busy day ahead of us. There are stories breaking all around us. Where would you like to start?
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the Angels. I mean, I know fans up in Orange County are still really frustrated.
They are staggering under the weight of injuries. I think they're staggering under the weight of, quote, mismanagement, whether it's the owner, whether it's the general manager. And now this Mike Trout, gone for 3 months, if not longer, meniscus surgery. He wept in the dugout talking to the media earlier this week. It was an amazing scene. He does not know how he got hurt. All he knows is his knee started to bother him at the end of the game. Knee bothered him in the locker room after the game, could not sleep overnight, went back, they found torn meniscus. We don't know the depth of meniscus. You know, you can go in and snip meniscus and maybe be back in 3 weeks, but if it's more significant, it's probably 3 months, and in many cases it can be 3 to 6 months, and he was just staggered by this. This comes a week after they lost Anthony Rendon, the third baseman. He's out with the torn hamstring. That's 4 years in a row Trout has had a significant injury, run into a wall, calf, shoulder. 4 years in a row Rendon has had all different types of injuries, torn hamstring, broken hand, hit by pitch, calf, etc. Do you know in 4 years, John, think about this, the money they're paying Trout and the money they're paying Rendon, in 4 years, those guys have played in the same lineup. Year 1, 19 games. Year 2, 42 games. Year 3, 39 games. This season, 19 games. You talk about a franchise that's got a black mark because of injuries. They've just wrapped up a horrible homestand. They went 2-7. Their pitching staff, the group, 5.08 ERA, worst in Major League Baseball. Bullpen, 5.61, even worse than the entire pitching staff. And I was trying to think of a word to describe what's happened with Angel baseball, and it's almost as if they're cursed. I mean, you look at the history of the Angels, what's happened with Trout 4 years running, what's happened with Rendon 4 years running. You tag onto that the Tyler Skaggs drug death with amphetamines and all that a couple of years ago. And then before that, Josh Hamilton's drug addiction, and he continued to relapse, and the Angels ate that contract. And then before that, the young, bright pitcher Nick Adenhart was killed by a drunk driver coming home from a game. And go as far back as you want. Donnie Moore committing suicide after giving up a home run in the playoffs, and relief ace Manny Rojas breaking his neck and dying in an accident during spring training. The franchise just seems to be cursed. So, I mean, is this just bad luck, what's happened to Trout and Rendon, or is it a bigger picture thing of, quote, being cursed?
Well, I think the Pirates of the Caribbean just right up the street, right? So there's some voodoo going on here. But yeah, there was another cases. Who was it? A guy named Henderson. He was on the Red Sox, played for the Angels in center field, and he had some kind of a mishap.
Dave Henderson.
Yes. Henderson. And then didn't he have trouble later on in his life?
Yeah. And then there was another one, Lyman Bostock, although that happened in Chicago, but Bostock had played out here.
Yeah.
Oh, it just goes on and on and on. And so what do you think about the whole Trout Rendon brouhaha, tropical storm?
Yeah, I don't know what to make there. I mean, first of all, Rendon, I think, is karma with that guy. With Trout, it's just weird. You know, he just seems to keep getting these injuries, and he's so tough and he's so strong and he's so athletic. He just makes you wonder how. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I think it's just it's a huge problem. But going back in time, I mean, do you have any good memories of the Angels? I mean, there's some, like, I think of Frank Tanana.
Oh,
you know, there's
Gene Chance, Frank Tanana, quote, back in the day.
Yeah.
Bill Rigney, when they were a really good franchise, right coming out of the expansion gate, the ex-Giant manager did a good job. Gene Autry was, I think, a very good owner. He spent an enormous amount of money. And then, you know, the year and a half, they were a pennant contender, and they got to the World Series, and they won the doggone thing. And I think of Mark Langston. I think of Tim Salmon. There were a bunch of David Eckstein. There were a bunch of really good players, good guys on that team. But, boy, that's in the rearview mirror. That is so far back. And they've just had nothing but problems and problems since Artie Moreno bought the franchise, tried to do well with the franchise, and made a lot of mistakes with the franchise.
Isn't it funny how the one franchise has a Trout and a Salmon?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. But yeah, they're in trouble. But I'll tell you what, the fans, from Angel fans, are flooding social media. On the one video clip that we did, you know, a couple of days ago, we posted it yesterday.
That was a terrible phrase that you asked me to use.
What's that?
Angels in hell or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, it was your quote that I used. Halo's going to hell. I took that from your quote, but that video clip has had like 24,000 views, like in the last, 24 hours. It's unbelievable. So Angel fans are fired up, but disappointed. They like getting some attention from the media, like from you, Hacksaw, but the team is a disaster.
It's terrible. All right, let's talk about other teams in Southern California. Let's go from the Halos to Dodger Blue.
L.A. Dodgers. What's new here, Lee?
We got a whole bunch of late-breaking stories, including stuff that's happened on Thursday morning. First of all, with the signing of Shohei Ohtani and the massive contract, even if it was deferred, there was enormous comment as to there's tax evasion by Ohtani and the Dodgers. Well, no, the state law allows you to do this. It is being investigated. Maybe there's going to be a change in, quote, how deferred payments are viewed as it relates to state taxes in the state of California. But it opened the door to big business with the Dodgers, have always done big business. The Dodgers have signed 7 Japanese corporate sponsors.
Wow.
You go to Chavez Ravine, you will start seeing signage all over the place in Japanese symbols, Japanese language, Japanese graphics. It's amazing. And again, these are not $2.95 endorsement packages. These are mega. I mean, he's got to be $1 million to $3 million per year over the next 5 years or 7 years or the entire length of the Ohtani contract. They have signed one of the leading banks in Japan, one of the leading car manufacturers, a pharmaceutical, leading insurance company, leading realtor, and one of the leading airlines, all as corporate sponsors at Dodger Stadium because Showtime is batting second in the batting order. So the Dodgers are recouping enormous amounts of money by virtue of this. And I was told that when the Angels had Ohtani, they were bringing in between $25 and $50 million per year. in Pacific Rim corporate sponsorships. But this is the Dodger brand, so I got to believe there's a lot more money tied to every contract that is signed. That, to me, is really fascinating.
It is, and I think it goes to show you how many of these games are being broadcast in Japan. Because, signage and kanji characters is certainly not for you or me. It's for the Japanese language folks, and
including all the ones that are living in Southern California who are watching.
Sure. But you ever notice how they'll have the boards behind home plate and they kind of change sometimes? Mm-hmm. You'll see some of those with Japanese language characters there as well. But, that's all part of the play here with the Dodgers. If they're getting $50 million or more in sponsorship, that easily covers Ohtani's contract or close to it, right?
It's fascinating sidebar story how the media covers it. There are like 50 to 60 daily Pacific Rim media assigned to cover the Dodgers. So sit in a press box or a separate press box, etc. I found out that when Ohtani pitched for the Angels, the games would be televised back to Japan. And if he went 6 innings, that game was 6 innings. When he exited after the 6th, they signed off. Yeah. And I've heard that story from Japanese media, and I've heard that story that with other Japanese stars, the Angels had couple of other Angels had a Japanese pitcher. I think it was the first one that came here. Shigetoshi Hasagawa, I believe was his name. Mm-hmm. And when he pitched, the game was on live TV. And when he left after the 4th inning or the 8th inning, they signed off and said goodbye. It's just fascinating. That's story one.
Do you ever, real quick, do you ever listen to the radio replays of the Korean broadcast team when Ha-Seong Kim hits a home run?
Sure.
I love that.
Yeah. Second story. Walker Buehler's on his way back to Los Angeles. They kept him in AAA Oklahoma City for his 6th rehab start. It's been a roller coaster for him, some good and some bad. His last rehab start, Oklahoma City at Albuquerque. And Albuquerque's a tough place to pitch because of the environment and the altitude and all that. Buehler, 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 94 miles an hour. Okay. So he had a good outing in a tough situation. He is on his way back to L.A. He will start Monday on a pitch count for the Dodgers. So first ailing arm now back on the roster when the Dodgers play the Marlins. Third story, Julio Urias, Cy Young Award guy 2 years ago, 20-4. A lot of physical problems last year, then removed from the roster after another domestic abuse case. This morning it's been released. He's plea bargained his domestic abuse case. He's been put on 3 years probation. He's been fined. He has to pay all the legal fees for both sides. He will spend 30 days doing community service work in a battered women's shelter.
Perfect.
Exactly. He will has to go to 1 year full of counseling about domestic abuse. His ex-wife has now hit him with a restraining order. He must not violate that. So in terms of the law, case is complete. In terms of Rob Manfred, MLB, that's next on the horizon. I was told because he's a second-time offender. There's never been a second-time offender in the domestic abuse MLB situation. He's probably looking to double the 20-game suspension he got last time, which would be a 40-game suspension that would be, I believe, having started at the start of this season. So he'll be free to sign a free agent contract with somebody. If I were the Angels, I would sign him. Hell, if I were the Dodgers, I might sign him. Now, he's not going to get a mega contract. All this happened when he was in his, quote, free agent year. He'll have to sign for the veterans minimum and prove himself again. So your response to Buehler, your response to Urias, would you sign him where?
Well, first of all, Buehler, it's like the rich getting richer, right? They're just loading up more. I mean, I've always really liked him as a pitcher. Yes. I mean, he just plays for the enemy. So the Dodgers are in great shape. And, yeah, there's going to be more coming, right?
Well, but that's down the road. Remember, the Dodgers, when they activate him on Monday, they still have 10 pitchers on the DL, which is a phenomenal number. And they're in first place.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. So I'm happy for Buehler coming back. I mean, it's been a long road for him. It's been longer for him than for most people with Tommy John, right?
And this is the second time he's come back.
Now, as far as Urias goes, I mean, the dude's getting what he deserves, and that's good. Should another team sign him? Yeah, I think after he pays his dues and the suspension, he probably should get signed somewhere.
Minimum contract.
Of course. But I'll tell you what, in comparison to Trevor Bauer, Bauer is like an angel compared to Urias, who is legitimately, like, under the law was found guilty, where, Bauer was scammed. So hopefully both those pitchers are able to resurrect their careers in some fashion.
Okay, we go from that. Let's talk Padre baseball.
Padre baseball. You know that who's been red hot is Jerks and Profar. Holy moly.
This is amazing. 10 for 16 since they put him in the leadoff spot. Guy is swinging. Guy's in a zone. Guy is a 246 hitter, so let's enjoy this while this lasts. But he's such a table setter. He's got such a vibe around him that seems to make everything around him more excitable. And dude's getting on base. So Padres are going on the road with a new leadoff hitter who's 10 for 16. 10 for 16 is pretty impressive. So we got that storyline. Machado is heated up. He's, instead of trying to hit everything to left center and hit it out of the yard, he's spraying the ball all over the place. He hit a 3-run homer in the first inning against the Reds that Steve Fairchild went over the top of the fence with his glove bent backward, caught the ball and brought it back in. Manny's playing really well. Unique observation about Manny Machado. And maybe this has got to do with marriage. Maybe this has got to do with the arrival of the first child. But he just looks and carries himself in a much more mature vein than he did just a couple of years ago, or back when he was with the Dodgers, or back when he offended everybody in Baltimore. You remember the phrase, "I'm not Johnny Hustle, I don't have to be."
Yeah.
He looks and sounds and acts like a much more mature person. So we got that. Somebody's not doing well, and I don't know whether he's out of sync. I don't think he's hurt. But Fernando Tatis is batting 147 over the last 10 games. That's the worst slump he's had ever since he joined the Padres as a teenager. So that's a big issue. In terms of Ha-Seong Kim, don't quite understand it unless people are pitching him differently, because they now have a resume of, if you make mistakes, he's going to hit the ball somewhere and maybe hit it out of the yard. He's only batting 214. Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, back-to-back quality starts. Now, can they continue to repeat that? Hopefully so. So, John, what do you think about the new leadoff hitter? Should we enjoy it for the next 15 minutes? And what's wrong with Tatis?
I love everything about Profar. I mean, think about this. We got him for $1 million, and we gave away Tradus Soto. He's making 30 times that. So this is a great story. And they ask him, how do you feel about being in the batting in the top of the lineup? He's like, hey, I'm happy anywhere. Put me anywhere, I'm happy. It's all good vibes. Yeah. And this is a guy that was the former top prospect in all of the minor leagues, had this bright future, was hampered by injuries, and now he's starting to kind of get the results that we all expected from him. So it's just a great story. And Xander Bogaerts wasn't getting it done at the top of the order. And then Machado, more mature. I've been noticing that for the last couple of years. Just the way he conducts himself in his post-game interviews. He's been a lot more mature, less of a punk like he was when he was with the Orioles, and even for that little bit with the Dodgers. Musgrove looked fantastic yesterday. I think he's back. I think that we have a lot there to be hopeful for. It's just the guys like you say, like Ha-Seong Kim, maybe like Tyler Wade, the guys that are at the very bottom of the order that had shown flashes of productivity. We need to shore that up. I mean, if AJ Preller could trade for one more bat, we'd be in great shape, like a legit DH.
But he doesn't have any dollars left. That's a big issue. Mm-hmm. So he's saving whatever dollars he has left in his checking account for the baseball trading deadline. So they got Arizona, and then they got the Dodgers. And then they're going to get the most amazing team in maybe the National League right now, the Chicago Cubs. So they got a group of games coming up here that are going to be really fascinating. So if you're a Dodger fan, if you're an Angel fan, if you're a Padre fan, my chat box is open. Fans Forum invitation to you to join us. Ask a question, make a statement. Are the Angels cursed? How horrible is this Trout-Rendon situation? Your read of Dodger baseball with Bueller about to get the baseball back. How about the Dodgers and their creative genius in terms of marketing and sales to get 7 corporate sponsors from Japan? You'll have to take Japanese lessons to read the out-of-town scoreboard going forward in Chavez Ravine. And if you're a Padre fan, like what you see for the last 15 minutes, we enjoy the next 15 minutes with Profar. You're a baseball fan, jump on board. And by the way, the Orioles kicked the Yankees in their first-place showdown series. Baltimore's kids just don't fear the Yankee batting order. That is Baltimore in first place, pal.
Right on.
You're a baseball fan, feel free to jump on board. John, let's go from that to hoops.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Lakers. It's finally the end of the line.
Exit meetings. Question is, who's going to exit? Lakers get knocked out of the playoffs. Just could not play 4 quarters of basketball against Denver. And it's odd because I looked at Denver in this playoff series and I said, those guys are the champions? Look how sloppy they play, how careless they are. Look at the turnovers. Not a hell of a lot of defense. That's the NBA champion? I didn't think Denver had a real good series. Now I'm going to find out what Denver's really like because that's Minnesota coming. Minnesota's finally healthy. Minnesota's got 3 guns in their lineup. So that Denver-Minnesota series is going to be good. But exit meetings with the Lakers. What happens with Rob Pelinka? He has tried to rebuild this roster 4 times. Have they gotten to the finals? Nah. So the burning question is, you keep him, he keeps making changes, he keeps bringing guys in, young guys, to support Anthony Davis, LeBron James. Do you keep him considering everything he's really tried to do? From Russell Westbrook to this year's group to the last year group that he rented?
But they did make the finals.
Again, Western Conference Finals.
No, they won the NBA Finals.
No.
In the COVID year.
Okay. That's the season with the Astra.
Yeah, that's a Roger Maris thing.
All right, so you're sanctioning Pelinka. Okay, you're entitled to a bad opinion.
Okay.
Darvin Ham, 99 and 86 with the Lakers, lost the room. Awful lot of player criticism, player insinuation. What are we doing with this rotation? How come the guys on the floor in the playoffs don't know what we're supposed to be running offensively, aren't playing a lick of defense? Who do you trust? Can you trust Darvin Ham? Is he in over his head? Has he done a good enough job with the players that are supposed to be supporting LeBron and AD? And then there's King James. He can opt out beginning June 1st, $51 million final year. He can opt out. He can then get a 3-year, $159 contract from the Lakers, or he can go on the open market. So you got that. And then there's the whole thing of, I want to play with Bronny James. Would the Lakers use the 55th pick in the second round to take a kid that averaged 4 points a game at USC and transfer it out? So now you got LeBron. Should he be making these decisions? There's a hell of a lot of people think LeBron's to blame for the decisions that have been made in the past. D'Angelo Russell, unbelievable record-setting season for the Lakers, and when it counted most, he went MIA, he disappeared. DAR, it's going to opt out. I was really upset. After maybe the 3rd or 4th game, he's talking in the locker room about my free agency. In the middle of the playoffs, my free agency. Wrong spot. D'Angelo, good night now. What do they do? How do they fix this thing? Bench. Have you seen enough of people like Hickson, Vanderbilt, Rui, Gabe Vincent? Virtually every guy they've brought in the last 2 calendar years as Pelinka's tried to rent people just have not panned out. Some have been hurt. Others seem overwhelmed. Others are limited in their capabilities. Do you just gut the entire bench? Do you fix it through the draft? The Lakers do have the 17th pick this year if New Orleans doesn't invoke the option and take it. If they gut the bottom of the bench, they will have some salary cap room. How do you fix it? What they need, aside from the greatness of LeBron and AD, there's an awful lot of bitching, by the way, going on about those guys. What they need more than anything else is grit and grime. They need, with apologies in advance to women and children, Draymond Green. What they need is a street fighter. Can you use the name Bobby Portis, who might be the best 6th man in the league, who will get the ball or punch you in the mouth trying to get the ball and can also score? That's the one ingredient, I think, that's missing on this Laker roster, either as the 3rd wheel or the first guy coming off the bench. So, John, I gave you a boatload of information. Just look at that board. Shoot me some reactions and comments, please.
Okay, let's look at that board. Oh, my God. All those names. First of all, how often do super teams win? I mean, when you sign AD and LeBron, and we've seen these cases with the Heat, with the Cavaliers, we've seen it with the Padres, we've seen it in all the sports. Sometimes I think they must fail far more often than they actually win.
Team chemistry's got a lot to do with it, but a lot of these teams that have gone to the favorite phrase in the NBA is the big three.
Yeah.
Have gone to the big three and somebody gets hurt or multiples get hurt. And that's kind of impacted some of the teams you thought, wow, are they going to be great? And all of a sudden they're hurt. LeBron and AD got banged this year, not as bad as the year prior. And, it forced the Lakers. They wound up finishing 7th. But, they're one and done in postseason because everybody around them fails. So that to me is kind of a big issue there.
Yeah, it's a weird chemistry there. And I do think LeBron is part of the problem. And it's not because he's necessarily causing problems, but it's because he's
his will imposes his attitude on the decision makers.
Yes. And
kind of like me and you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's the auras that he creates. It makes it an unusual vibe. I mean, imagine if you're Austin Reeves, you only have certain moments. A lot of times Austin Reeves, the first thing he does is pass the ball to LeBron, and then LeBron takes action. So you kind of wonder, is this really a cohesive unit or a bunch of individual superstars that don't play well together?
I think they got 2 superstars, and the rest has been erratic and streaky. Reeves was terrible. Darvin Ham used the comment, I think the 4th week of the season when they were struggling. Yeah, we got some guys here that are crap in the bed. And that didn't go down well in that locker room. That's one of the reasons I think some of the players are kind of peeved at Darvin Ham. But they've just not been able to find the right mix. And to me, I'm calling Draymond Green. To me, I'm calling Bobby Portis. I like Portis a lot, and he's a bleep disturber on the floor. Mm-hmm. But all you need to do is look at where he's been. Milwaukee, Detroit, Chicago. The guy just grinds on you. And you may not like him because you got to play against him, but if he's on your side, you're going to get value in the minutes. So we get that. By the way, there's a sidebar story that just broke. Would you please call this guy? The area code is 213. I'll give you his phone number. Tell Magic Johnson to stay off social media. Magic Johnson, I don't know if you heard about this.
No, I haven't.
Ex-president of the Lakers or general manager or coach or Hall of Fame superstar. Hadn't done very much once he stopped bouncing the basketball. Magic Johnson goes on social media, and he just bangs the Lakers after they lost to Denver.
Yeah.
And says, shame on the Lakers. Your load management has led to this. Didn't give you home court advantage, etc. Well, that's not true. They didn't do load management. AD and LeBron only missed a combined 17 games this year. In fact, Anthony Davis played 72 games, I believe.
Wow.
For a guy that's plays hard and has a history of getting hurt. So 24 hours later, after the world seizes all on Magic, he reposts and says, I apologize, I was wrong. Pay attention to what the hell's going on. By the way, that or stay off social media. Load management. That had nothing to do with it.
Well, I always think of Kawhi with load management.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
But I mean, Magic Johnson's frustrated. He represents the Laker brand, and the Lakers are stinking up the joint. So that's a problem. But Magic Johnson's still doing a lot. He's got a lot going on. Isn't he a part owner of the Commanders?
He's a part owner of a lot of
and
stuff.
The Dodgers.
And he's very successful as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. As a management guy, no. He failed miserably as a coach.
Oh, yeah, I remember
the short
that.
window.
Yeah.
And as, management guy, no. Stay off social media, Magic. Just let me remember your greatness in Showtime and not this junk that just keeps going on and on and on. Okay, we go from the Lakers. Let's go to a Clipper call.
The Clippers. It was a big game last night. What do you think of that one, Lee?
Well, they're gassed, and not having Kawhi is a big issue. And then, there's no doubt that Dallas ratcheted up their defense, and they're going to have some decisions to make. They're down in the series now, and it's a big issue. Dallas just dismembered them at home in front of Steve Ballmer and all the Clipper fans. Now the series goes back to Dallas, and I would assume that'll be good night now pretty doggone quickly. Here's a big storyline that's just starting to leak out. Paul George has the ability to opt out of his $48 million contract. Paul George is the one that said early in the season, let's keep this thing together. So the Kawhi re-signs a 3-year extension. They got Harden. Now PG is dropping hints. I'm going to test free agency. I'm going to opt out. And the report is that Miami and Philadelphia, who both need another star player and have cap space, are going to make a run at Paul George. That's a big issue. If he leaves, then the franchise is really in trouble because we don't know how much is left in the gas tank for Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's second straight year this knee has blown up on him at the end of the season. And remember, he's had 3 major surgeries, 2 of them in the right knee that are causing all the problem. The one thing that helps him is you got Harden, who looks like he's changed his role. One thing that helps him is Westbrook, when he's focused, has really become a complete guy, first man off the bench. Norman Powell looks like maybe he's a potential starter, and he carries a little bit of fire in his gut. And their bigs, the 2 role guys that got Zubac and Plumlee, really play hard, and they score points and they get rebounds and make things happen. But boy, if Paul George exits, this is terrible. And then you got the whole Tyrone Lee story. The rumor mill is in Los Angeles is that if the Lakers hit the eject button on Darvin Ham, the Lakers are going to make a run at Tyronn Lue. Now, I don't think the Clippers want him to leave, but, Lue has been mentioned. I think he's one of the more underrated, really good coaches in terms of team chemistry. That Lue might entertain an offer to go across the hallway and go play for the Lakers. So Clippers are at a bit of a crossroads. So what do you think about PG? What do you think about mileage left for Kawhi? And what do you think about the coach?
I'm surprised on the Paul George information. I mean, because it was such a perfect fit in L.A. He's from L.A. He's went to college in California. That's too bad. But it just goes to show you the way the NBA is. It's, back in the day, we didn't see as much movement of players,
Yeah, players weren't general managers either.
Well, that too, but you get back in the 80s, Michael Jordan, Julius Erving, for the most part, were on the same team. Who else on the list? Kawhi. I don't know what to say about the guy. I mean, it's just a problem. And, Tyronn Lue's an interesting guy because, the one thing I always think about with him is he was the guy that I think Allen Iverson stepped over him after he hit a 3 like in the corner one time. Tyronn Lue actually played for a while in the NBA. And
he played 9 years, 10 years.
Yeah. He was always just sort of stealth. He was just always there.
Never on the periphery, but he contributed. But nobody saw him as, quote, coach in waiting. And the guy's done a fairly good job. As a head coach. Well,
it's funny. You look in his eyes sometimes, and he looks like he's lost. But obviously, he's a smart man. They wouldn't make him the head coach for nothing. Bombers building that new arena. You would hope that the Clippers could keep building, and now it looks like they might get torn apart again.
Here's PG in November. Let's keep this core together.
Yeah.
Kawhi signs, and now Paul George is dropping hints about free agency.
Him and Delangelo.
One other note here in the NBA as we go to the second round. Boy, these headlines, this is amazing, the chaos. So many teams have suffered so many injuries to so many key players. First round of the playoffs, John, have been really badly impacted. Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, he had 50 points in a game. He's playing on a bad knee. He was playing with migraines, and now he's confirmed he's been afflicted by Bell's palsy, which is a paralysis around the face, and yet he goes out and answers the bell. He's a really good player. They got Tyrese Maxey, scored 46 the other night, but they're in big trouble. They're playing, the guys from across the river, the New York Knicks. So Philadelphia, Embiid, he can't do what he normally does. Clippers, we talked about how many miles Kawhi has left. The Bucks, they're on the brink of getting eliminated by the Indiana Pacers, who don't play a lick of defense. But the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, one's obviously got the calf, the other's got the Achilles. Lillard's been trying to play through it. Giannis is supposedly going to try to play Game 6 if they have to win on the road, otherwise their season is over. Miami's season is done. They were decimated by injuries. They were bombed by Boston. Miami loses Jimmy Butler early, then Terry Rozier, then Jaime Jaquez, then Josh Richardson. They were down 4 guards. It was like they were playing an NBA G League backcourt in the final games against the Boston Celtics. So Miami's just riddled by injuries. And in Phoenix, boy, you talk about a bad fit. They get knocked out of the playoffs. They got swept 4 straight by Minnesota. And that new owner is taking a lot of heat, Matt Ishbia. And his coach is on the brink of being fired, Frank Vogel. He's still got 4 years left on his contract. And, they spent all that money to put Kevin Durant on the floor with Devin Booker, and then they traded for Brad Beal. And they had so many injuries in the backcourt. Those 2 guys played so poorly. Durant can't do it by himself. And get this, If they eat the 4-year contract on Vogel, they have to go get another coach who can manage the personalities. They got $209 million committed for next year, and they owe $116 million in tax payments next year with those players. There's no way for them to change the chemistry of the team unless the coach comes in there with a gun and is going to make everybody do things differently. So all those teams are pretty good basketball teams, all impacted for the most part by injuries and, in the Phoenix case, by attitudes.
More super teams having trouble, Lee. That's what we're seeing here. Now, there's been a lot of injuries, like you were saying, like calves, and even like Zion Williamson. He had the
he went out with the hamstring at the end.
Right. But do you sense that these injuries that we're hearing about, are they really bad injuries or just little nicks? Like if they were to roll out, let's say Jaime Jaquez for the Heat, would he be able to play 80%, or is he just literally got like he's like in a hospital bed and he can't play at all?
Well, if you can't run the offense and you can't get open in the motion offense, and if you can't move side to side and explode defensively, because you got to play defense at the other end, what value are you? Now you're a liability on the floor. Mm-hmm. If this were the third weekend in November and you're playing a lousy team like Portland, yeah, you sit. But this is the playoffs. If these guys could be out there contributing at near peak efficiency, they'd be on the floor.
Well, you remember you've seen Larry Bird come off the bench from injuries.
Willis Reed dragging his leg up and down the floor with the old New York Knicks. But that was back in the day. But if these guys could play, they'd still play.
Well, I just wonder if the threshold for saying that you're hurt has changed, that maybe the NBA players today are more delicate than they were in the 80s and in the 70s.
No, I thought you promised me you wouldn't do the show from left field today. I mean, the players are so athletic. They're so powerful. They're so explosive. I think they're more prone to get hurt just because of who they are and how hard they play and how physical and explosive they are. Okay, you got a basketball question. Hey, Fans Forum is open. And we get to halftime. John, explain to everybody what Fans Forum is all about.
Okay, Fans Forum. Already people piling in. Our friends from Winnipeg are all rating the podcast. But if you've got a question or comment for Lee, we've talked about Angels, Dodgers, Padres, Lakers, Clippers, the NBA, and we've got a bunch more coming up on the show. If you have a question or comment for Lee, drop it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
And a reminder, I write every day on this website. If you check my website first thing every morning, you give me 5 minutes, I guarantee you'll be the smartest guy on the block, because we cover everything. So go to the website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, and he's the one that's wanted to start this. So we started Hacksaw's Insiders Group. John, explain how once everybody gets to my homepage, what they do next.
Yeah, so go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com, that orange box. You put in your name, your email address, and right now we're sending out the best 15 minutes in sports. Mostly every weekday that comes out. But boy, you read that 15 minutes and you know everything that's going on in the world of sports. It's unbelievable what you write. But we got some other things planned for the new year, so just sign up, get on board, be part of the team, Hacksaw's Insiders Group.
And a reminder, I want you to share, tell everybody in your email book what you're doing, where you're getting your sports, and we want you to subscribe, because we put a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel on the days that we're not broadcasting, so you'll get the alerts every time those things are available. We're at halftime. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. Does not matter what the project is, whether you're going to redo the bathroom, whether you're adding new cabinets to the kitchen, John's man cave, my man cave needs more bookcases, or whether it's something significant like new doors or new windows, you want to do something out on the patio, something up by the pool. When it comes time to do projects for 2024, think of these people for materials. Think of these people for ideas. We call them our best friends, DIXIELINE Lumber.
DIXIELINE Lumber.
And our podcast brought to you by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. We will all need help with our eyes, whether it's vision tests, whether it's new glasses, whether it's bifocals, whether it's contact lenses, or if there's something much more significant going on. Thing I didn't know anything about, pink eye. I got that treated. Glaucoma, as well as cataracts. We all need help with your eyes. When that time comes, just remember this name, North County Eye Center. We go to the second half of our Thursday podcast, heading towards the great sports weekend still to come. You're going to be part of this, our fans forum. Get ready to fire a question or two through the chat box. John, other topics on the table, other sports, other teams, go.
Before we get to that, you said earlier, check your email book, to let our friends and family know about the podcast. Do you have an email book?
Yes. I got thousands of email addresses in it.
Wait, is it like a handwritten book that you keep next to your landline?
No, because I did graduate, and yes, I do have those other books still there from back in the day, but now I have an address directory, an email, and if I need something, I'll go search it, find it, and put it up there.
There you go. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to talk a little NFL here. New rules, Lee?
Yeah, Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the National Football League, has confirmed the NFL is seriously discussing, quote, with its partners. That means the owners, the other owners, and that means the TV networks, pushing the schedule to 18 games effective next year. And what they're going to do is, if it gets approved, 18 regular season games. They'll reduce preseason to just 2 games and maybe a controlled scrimmage. They're going to have to negotiate through the union. The union says if we're going to 18, which will mean more pay, if we're going to 18, we want a second bye week. That impacts the playoffs. The NFL is now talking about pushing the Super Bowl back to President's Day.
Wow.
We go right from the Super Bowl to baseball spring training probably the next morning. Mm-hmm. But I always thought 18 games was on the horizon. I just questioned just about the wear and tear factor on players' bodies.
Yeah, well, 18 makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I remember having season tickets to the Chargers, and you were forced to buy 2 preseason games at home. You had to buy them, and it was not worth the money. So good for them going to 18-2. But isn't this funny how all the sports, we got World Series drifting towards Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Now we've got the Super Bowl going towards President's Day.
Remember, basketball goes into the end of June, and hockey almost gets to July 4th.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, remember when the Super Bowl used to be like just right after New Year's?
I remember when the championship game was in December back in the day. Of course, that was in the era of black and white TV, and I was a kid.
Do you think the NFL would ever start their season earlier, like maybe the same weekend college football does?
It's one of the ideas, and I've never understood why you wouldn't do it. Granted, would it impact college football? Maybe to a degree, but you play your games on Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
Or your first game is on Thursday, as it always is. You just play it on Thursday, and then you roll into Labor Day weekend. Everybody's home. Why wouldn't you want that captured audience? I'm surprised they haven't done it, but maybe they will do this. Second NFL question. Roger Goodell says we've done 2 years with this experiment in OTA workouts and in preseason training camps, the Guardian cap shells on the helmet. It has been a success. The survey shows 51% less concussions in preseason practices and OTAs in a 2-year span. They look weird. They protect the players. They have now sanctioned players will be allowed to wear the Guardian caps in the regular season. Some of the players, notably linemen who are involved in heavy contact all the time, linemen are saying they're going to do it. Have not heard a quarterback speak out about it. I don't know about the divas, the wide receivers, whether they think that's not sexy to wear that. But boy, if it's safety, and they've got the research, it shows more than 51% less concussions with these shells. And we know, obviously, the force of contacts and tackles in regular season games. So, John, what do you think about that?
Love it. Anything about safety, I think, is great. I'm kind of wondering, though, when I've seen those caps over the helmet, they cover the logo on the helmets. Yes. So I imagine they'll make them in the colors scheme with the logos. That could be interesting. But do you remember, like maybe 10 years ago, there was a pitcher for the Padres that had a padded baseball hat because he didn't want to get hit by a line drive to the head. We haven't seen any of that in baseball lately.
And guys are taking line drives over different parts of their body. You're correct. I think the last pitcher that I know of the Padres got badly hurt, I think it was a reliever, Bryce Florio, took a line drive in the head. But there have been other players. And Chris Young, the big 6'8" pitcher, I think he took one that broke his nose. And we've had some significant concussions from line drives back to the box.
Right. So
nobody has done anything that radical.
Well, I think this is great. I mean, it works for the kids. It's scientifically proven. It's going to look a little weird, but yeah, I think maybe like a wide receiver might not want to wear one. I mean, probably because it might throw off their balance. But if you're like a lineman, a linebacker, a running back, why not?
But it's almost like super styrofoam.
Yeah.
We're not talking about 2 extra pounds. We're not talking about the weight of shoulder pads. Mm-hmm. I would do it, and I'll be interested to see what happens as we come through this preseason to see if we get to Labor Day weekend and a lot of players start to wear it, because it's right there, and concussions are critical in terms of long-term health.
I think NFL players are going to start to look like the great Kazoo from the Flintstones. Remember him?
Yeah. He
had that big helmet. So, yeah, this will be cool. I think it's a good thing.
Oh, we go from there. Let's go to college football. Oh, this is quite a story.
Oh, my God. All right. I'm just going to let you go for it here, Lee.
The New York Times and The Athletic did an in-depth research piece on all the players that Deion Sanders ran off at the University of Colorado last year, what's happened again in a repeat performance this year, and it's a huge issue, and there is real lashback. You can call it the Buffalo Stampede. That's a good headline. You know, Deion came on board. If you remember his first press conference, he recommended there's a whole bunch of you ought to go right to the transfer portal when this meeting is over. Well, they wound up with 87 newcomers on last year's Colorado football roster. 53 Buffalo players exited the program in Deion's first year. Then when they got to the end of spring football last year, he fired 20 more in spring football. And since the end of this season, 30 more have left. So that's a total of 83 players in like 14 months that Deion got rid of. It's a bad situation. So the New York Times, flip to the next board, John. The New York Times has gone out and talked to the players that were there who vacated. And a big issue was the players said the way they were treated once Deion got there, and Deion settled everything in his office, and he didn't sugarcoat anything. He just flat out told the players he didn't want, we don't need you anymore. There was no in-between. Then once they told the players that you're not going to be part of the program, they locked them out of the football facility immediately. They closed out all their computers, their access to any Colorado football information. The players who survived said it became nothing more than us versus the transfers, Deion's favorites that they brought in. And the veteran players who survived said every day was like a tryout. And he said the coaches that Deion brought in just were negative. They said they destroyed the confidence of the veteran players that they handled. And players were really offended because all of a sudden it was about Deion and his son Shedeur and reality TV. And there were cameras everywhere. It wasn't a team concept anymore, and they were really bothered by that. So that comes out, and now Deion, in the last 48 hours since this New York Times story surfaced, he just goes on the offensive. And Deion, this morning, said the guys in the transfer portal, bunch of quitters. Well, that's not quite the case. You ran a whole pile of those kids off who had been on scholarship. And then his son, Shedeur, who has his own, quote, YouTube channel, and was running around with his friends, video and everything. Shedeur says, what was your name? Were you on this team? Kind of condescending towards the guys who exited and were left. And then Deion came back again today and said, for all the critics, hey, my son's going to be in the top 5 in the draft. Where's your guy going to be? He's just throwing gasoline on a fire, and he's incensed a lot of coaches in the Big 12, just like he pissed off a lot of coaches in the Pac-12. You know, they had the 3-0 start, and they went 1-8 after that, and they got buried. And then Deion made the closing comment, transfer portal, like room service, just order up what you want. Huge issue, and he just is throwing more gasoline on this fire, and it's an awful lot of people outside of Boulder are really in grudge mode. And we talked about Colorado football, John, being must-see TV and how cool it was going to be, and it was unbelievable when they upset TCU first game of the season, and it kind of all caught up with him. And he ran off more players. He's lost a bunch of assistant coaches who vacated, including one who got demoted, who wound up Sean Lewis being the head coach at San Diego State. So the story's not going away, and the question is, what kind of success is he going to have? He keeps trying to operate the way he's trying to operate. You were a big Colorado supporter early on. You don't think dude did anything wrong in the transfer portal. Every coach that I kind of commiserated with, current coaches or retired coaches, said that's not the way you treat your players or your program. And John Riley says,
it's the transfer portal works in two directions.
Yes.
Right? So players are going into the portal unannounced, leaving their teams hanging. You know, they don't have guys to replace them. And it's all about me, the athlete. Well, the same thing goes for the coach. He's trying to build a program, me, Deion. So it's the shifting nature of this. Now, the numbers that you shared about the stampede of buffaloes running out of Boulder, Colorado.
Forced out of Boulder, Colorado.
Forced out. But those numbers are huge. But I would imagine with the transfer portal, there's a lot of that going on in other places. Maybe not to the same degree, but certainly a lot more than what has traditionally been in the past of teams cutting guys or players deciding to go elsewhere. Colorado only won one game 2 years ago. I mean, they were at the bottom of the list, and they've got to do a lot of work. They had a lot of, really poor performing players. I love Deion. I love everything about how he believes in himself and how he's getting these guys psyched up to play. I really like his leadership skills. This is kind of harsh, what's going on there. I acknowledge that. But overall, I think what he's trying to build in Colorado is refreshing, and it's a change. And I'm all in on Deion. And this is going to sort itself out. But it's no different, not significantly different than what we're seeing at other universities.
Okay, here's a sidebar question. So we had year one where you rubber stamped and said that's okay way to do business. Now we get to this spring, and he blows 30 more out. We don't need you, right? At the day after spring ball. Now, what kind of message does that send to the group that's still there or the group that might be coming in that he's done it 2 years in a row to kids? Some that he inherited, a large number he inherited, plus the bunch he recruited. Now he wants them out.
It means you better darn well perform, because if you don't, you're out. And that's just the reality of college sports. You think people go there, they get a scholarship. They think, at least fans do, that they're locked in for 4 years, but it's not. Every year is a new scholarship. You got to prove yourself. There's always a new young freshman coming in. There's always a transfer guy that wants your spot. That's just the nature of it. And the more you go up the levels in any sport, every day is still a tryout because it's so competitive. It's just that Deion puts it all out in the public because he's got the TV crew following him around. And besides, people want to tear Deion down, because of all the fame and hype that he got last year.
Okay. Fans Forum. You're a college football fan. There is no excuse for you not to be in the Fans Forum in the chat box right now. Very simple question, and I need you to fill up the rest of the chat box. Pro Deion, believe the way he's doing business. Anti-Deion, it's unethical. Let's see what the fans have to say. You know what I say in the anchor's chair. You know what Dude says, broadcasting from left field with his opinions. Pro or anti-Deion? You got a couple of minutes here before we go to Fans Forum. Jump on board. Speaking of the transfer portal, John, they gotten stung here in San Diego.
Yeah, this news about Elijah Saunders caught a lot of us off guard.
Yeah, San Diego State loses, I think, the kid they were going to build around. Elijah Saunders, I thought, had a really good breakout sophomore season, 6'8", defender, rebounder, three-point shooter. Not there yet, average 6 points, 4 rebounds per game, but he was the one they're going to build around. Out of nowhere, he opts out. There's going to be a payday coming. I believe he's going somewhere with one of the former Pac-12 teams. That's a blow because that comes right on the heels of the loss of Lamont Butler, who decided to spend his last year at the University of Kentucky. Now, they have recruited a 6'10" shooting center from Middle Tennessee State, Coleman Johnson. That will help them some, but he's surely not Jaden Ledee. He's not what was before Nathan Mensah. They've gotten him, and this morning they just got Wayne McKinney, transfer gritty guard from the University of San Diego.
Nice.
He will play his final year at San Diego State, and he'll be the heir apparent probably to Lamont Butler. So we got that, and then we got what's going on in football, and football has really taken a hit. As much as I've tried to sales pitch, this is a dynamic guy in Sean Lewis coming from Colorado with its offense, and I know everything about what he did in the Mid-American Conference at Kent State and Bowling Green and what he learned while he was at Syracuse. They have now lost 41 players since Sean Lewis was hired to replace Brady Hoke in December. Guys are tampering with their players. Kids are walking out without giving them a chance to see what spring ball would be like or what the coming season would be like. He lost 3 running backs in a week, led by their top recruit, Anthony McClellan. He just lost their future kicker, who came in, was here for 15 minutes from Fresno State. He's just filed. They lost a big JUCO linebacker from Ohio, who I thought had great potential at 6'5" as a blitz backer. He was here, couldn't play last year until he got his academic house in order, was here as a number 2 guy in spring. he just left. I mean, they are just really getting smoked. They picked up an offensive tackle from Arizona. They picked up an offensive guard from Middle Tennessee State. They got a transfer running back from Ball State. They got a linebacker from Central Michigan. But we're not getting anybody from these Big Ten schools outside of the kid from Arizona. But they are so deficient in the offensive front, defensive front, and they keep losing players. 41 kids since December 15th.
So, again, the transfer portal works in two directions. It's a two-way street. But are a lot of these guys that are leaving, are they star players, starters at San Diego State that are going for a better deal? Or are these guys that were like third stringers and were just disgruntled and decided, I'm out of here, I'm going in the portal?
Well, some guys are second stringers with potential to play the minute there's an injury. Some guys third stringers who have 3 years left, chance to grow, and then wind up taking a position. So there's just an awful lot of kids bailing for a wide variety of reasons, and that to me, it's detrimental to the program. They've lost so much talent. It's unbelievable. And they're not being able to replace the talent because they can't get into the bidding war to get somebody. I mean, they do have a defensive back from UCLA, William Nemo, but they can't get into the bidding to get legitimate stud players to step down and play at the Mountain West Conference level. You can take half the Mid-American Conference, but are they better and they're going to be able to do anything different than the kids you lost? I don't know.
Well, when these other programs have NIL budgets, is it just come from fans that are donating and maybe occasional corporate sponsors? Because it seems San Diego, we got to, and we're not a huge metropolitan area, but we should be able to carry our weight here.
We're not a huge corporate area. That's a big issue.
So that must be it. So maybe like, when you're in the, say, Kentucky Wildcats,
history, tradition.
Yeah, and what corporations are funding those NILs, or are they just the big cigar guys?
There's the big cigar guys with corporate ties, and it's Kentucky basketball, which is not Brady Hoke football.
No. Well, speaking of Kentucky basketball, Lamont Butler went there. But you see how they just signed another point guard from West Virginia?
Yeah, Pope has signed 7 transfers in a week and a half.
So Lamont Butler's going there to get on the big stage. I wonder if he's even going to be playing.
Well, he'll be maybe first man off the bench if he's not the starter. He'll have to earn it, but he's getting payday. And sadly, that's what his father was talking. It was all about this time, payday.
As far as Elijah Saunders goes, it was disappointing to see that. But, he kind of hinted in an Instagram post that we don't see everything that's going on. There's a lot of other issues, and it's not always NIL that drives these kids to transfer. Elijah Saunders is from the Phoenix area. And so if he goes back home to play for Arizona State or Grand Canyon, why would we shame him? But a lot of these guys are getting a lot of hate on social media.
I wouldn't hate him. It's disappointing. It's disappointing for Dutcher. They got something really good here. Again, you're going to screech at me. I'll say loyalty. Elijah got better because of Dutcher and coaching, direction. And now he's not going to be there to finish the deal. I'm not hating on the kid. We all have different reasons why kids will leave. I do truly understand that. But this is a big blow because he was going to be the man.
Speaking of loyalty, there was a comment in social media someone made that you were calling out teams about loyalty and you were on their case about it. And you were wearing a Chargers hoodie, and we were saying loyalty with the Chargers. It was just kind of funny.
It was loyalty to Justin Herbert.
Okay.
I am the one who said, I hope the quarterback goes 17-0, and I hope the owner goes 0-17. So you know where my sentiment is.
Yeah, that's a conflict. It never happened. It's a contradiction.
There's counseling for that, I understand.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, we go from that. Last topic on the table. Big weekend here, speaking of Kentucky.
The Kentucky Derby, Lee.
My old Kentucky home. 150th race. This race should be special. This race instead is shrouded by controversial around the twin steeples there. The best horse in the race is not entered. Follow me on this. As you recall, legendary trainer Bob Baffert was suspended a couple of years ago. A positive drug test for the Derby winner Medina Spirit. Medina Spirit has since passed away because of a heart attack. This situation with Baffert's not resolved. Neither is the death of 12 horses a year ago this week. 12 horses died at Churchill Downs that week and leading into and through Kentucky Derby Day. They've not been able to configure if there was one rationale why all these horses broke down. The top horse in the field should have been Muth, a Baffert-trained horse owned by a firm that had filed a lawsuit trying to get an injunction to allow Baffert to put the horse in the Derby. Baffert agreed to a 2-year suspension because of the Medina Spirit controversy. Baffert was not allowed to enter any of his horses for 2 years at Churchill Downs. He was allowed to take his horses and assign them to a different trainer. That trainer could then enter them, and that happened each of the past 2 years. Then Churchill Downs, there was an asterisk in the clause with the 2-year suspension, said he must apply for reinstatement. He applied for reinstatement. They said, no, you have not been contrite enough. We're going to add a 3rd-year suspension.
What?
Yeah. So therefore, Baffert has no horses in the Derby. Baffert elected not to take Muth and transfer it to another trainer that would have put that horse in the Derby. And instead, Baffert, in essence, has stepped back and said, fine, we won't run Churchill Downs. I'm taking my entire stables, and we'll be at the Preakness at Pimlico, and we'll be at Belmont Stakes. So we got all this swirling around Baffert, the 12 deaths last year that they've never been able to come up with a solution to. All this because, quote, he didn't show enough contrition. I think, to me, it's horribly detrimental. I was with the president of Del Mar a week ago, and he indicated to me Baffert will be fine, horse racing will be fine. There just won't be any sightings of Baffert on Churchill Downs Saturday, Derby Saturday, but he'll be back. He'll be back for the Triple Crown. He'll be back out here, etc. So I just don't understand. Churchill Downs, you didn't show enough contrition. We're going to add a 3rd year to the suspension. Holy cow.
That's injustice. I mean,
detrimental to the sport.
Yeah, it's almost like they want to just beat Baffert down. It's like bend the knee. That's bizarre. Now, I want to just an unusual question here. You look at horse racing, and you got the 3 big races for the Triple Crown. I know there's a couple of others. And then you got all these major events for golf and tennis and auto racing. Of all of those sports events, which one do you think is the most special?
Oh, I think the signature events would be Churchill Downs on Saturday, Indy 500 on Memorial Day, obviously Super Bowl Sunday. I would say those are the top 3. I don't know that the NBA Championship Series or the NHL Stanley Cup Finals are anywhere near those upper echelon ones. I do think some of the, quote, Olympic events are really, really special. But no, the big 3 are the big 3.
Yeah. And the Masters is a good one, too.
Well, they should have.
Yeah, the Masters is there. So
up until this year.
But I have a friend of mine. He has a Kentucky Derby party at his house every year. And I think it's just kind of a cool event to do that in early May.
You like mint juleps? A little too sweet for me. I've tried that. I said, nah, pass.
Yeah, I think I'm not into that.
Okay, it is time for Fans Forum. We got a people loaded here. Feel free, if you're a horse racing fan, last minute Del Mar guy, jump into the chat room. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Again, Fans Forum starts right now. A reminder, this podcast and this Fans Forum brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you, and by North County Eye Center. When you need help with your eyes, think North County Eye Center. John, ready, set, go.
Okay, let's go to Robert, talk Angels. Hey, keep up the great work. Do you think the Angels will hit MLB rock bottom?
They're right there. I mean, if you're not going to have Trout for 3 months and Rendon's gone indefinitely, and their pitching staff and their bullpen have the worst ERAs in baseball, what do you think of the outcome of this season is going to be? It's terrible. And all the one-year rentals that their general manager tried to bring in, Perry Manassian, haven't really panned out. One-year rentals hitting .230 or not playing hardly at all. So it's a big, big issue. I mean, it looks like they're bottoming out.
Artie Moreno's spending money, though. I mean, what's the salary for the whole team?
It's less than it was a year ago. He never replaced the OHTANI money. That was $30 million. He says, I'll spend it when the right players are there. Well, he didn't do anything in free agency, so what you have is probably a mid-level budget at best, with a lot of one-year rental guys and headed to last place.
I figured that they would be above the median in spending, like over 150, over 180 million, no?
I want to say last year was 220, which was the highest they ever had. Mm-hmm. I want to say that they're probably in the 150 range right now.
Yeah. I mean, so it's not like they're...
But a lot of that was given to Trout and given it to Rendon.
Yeah, all your eggs in those 2 baskets. But, the White Sox are terrible. The Marlins are terrible.
There's a lot of bad baseball out there.
This is unusual this year, isn't it?
There's an awful lot of bad teams, and baseball just allows this crap to go on by allowing these owners to have $43 million payrolls. There was an incident 2 days ago former A's pitcher Ron Darling, who's a very successful broadcaster for the Mets. Mm-hmm. He went on network TV and he crucified John Fisher, the Oakland A's owner, for his whole methodology. And Ron Darling, his closing comment was, "Please tell me, do you think John Fisher's ownership of the A's is beneficial to the other 29 owners in baseball? We know it's not beneficial to the Oakland Athletic fans. We know it's not fair to the players that have to wear those colors to have that guy as your owner. And that guy's trying to move the franchise. And by the way, you're going to be playing in Sacramento. And by the way, he doesn't have the funding yet for the Las Vegas Stadium. Is this guy, John Fisher, good for Major League Baseball?" And the commissioner's office has just allowed this to go on and on and on unchecked.
Yeah, exactly. Usually in other sports, they'll step in and try to fix this. But good for Ron Darling for standing up and saying that. Do you think he's going to get in any trouble for being so candid? Is someone going to slap him on the wrist or maybe take him off the air?
No, he's pretty popular. Charles Barkley's still on the air running his mouth, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he is.
There you go. Next question.
Okay, another Angels comment. This is from James. He goes, "I'll be back as a true Angel fan when Artie Moreno sells the team. He's made them the worst organization in Major League Baseball."
Well, they've fallen. They've fallen very badly from the fun times that we had with Jim Abbott and a World Series team and all that. And maybe I'm not blaming him entirely, but obviously this has come under his watch. So maybe as disparaging as it's been to him personally, and maybe as bad as this situation is at Angel Stadium, he will elect to step away and put the team up for sale, and somebody else will come buy it. I tend to think Anaheim is a really good sports market unto itself. But boy, they're suffering between the Angels and the Ducks, who are in a massive rebuild that's taken centuries. Boy, Orange County sports fans going through a real tough time if you're not a Dodger fan.
Yeah, unbelievable what's going on over there. Let's move on. Let's go down to, let's go here to Angel. And he says, "Padres took 2 of 3 from good Cincinnati Reds. Now see if the Friars do the same with the struggling Diamondbacks."
Well, the only asterisk I'd put next to the statement, the Reds are really young, and we saw them play some really bad defense. Throw balls away, misjudge fly balls. Their defense led to a bunch of unearned runs. Young pitching sometimes walks too many batters. Young pitching leaves balls up in the zone that are hit out of the yard. You know, Cincinnati is making progress. I think L.A. De La Cruz is a really good shortstop, but he airmailed throws and bounced throws. He got killed running the bases, running them out of rally. So, prime example. Young kids learning on the job, and sometimes it's a bumpy road. A year from today, Cincinnati will probably be better. And a year from today, when Cincinnati thinks it's going to be a contender, maybe they'll dive into the marketplace and sign a few veteran free agents. But they got a lot of really good young players every day lineup.
L.A. De La Cruz is a lot of fun to watch. It reminds me of when Tatis was like in his first or second year. It's nice to see the big red machine, being, relevant again. But that catch that Fairchild made in center field, it reminded me, remember in the World Baseball Classic, Manny Machado hit the ball at Petco to that same spot, and Adam Jones.
Yeah, Adam Jones.
Adam Jones caught it. And I was at that game, by the way. That was Dominican Republic against USA. It was an amazing day. That was like in 2017, I think. So, but Manny's hitting the ball hard, so you like to see that.
On we go. Next question, Fans Forum.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. He goes, "Hacksaw, Bobby Portis is an excellent suggestion."
I told you so.
The Lakers, of course you did. The Lakers need a street fighter like you that will put the Raider fan in the hospital. Oh, Kawhi Leonard, start watching this bleeping podcast and learn what it means to play hurt, damn it.
Well, he's had significant injuries. The quad injury was really severe. Now what's happened with meniscus, and it's happened 2 years in a row, is a big issue. It'd be safe to say he needs another off season just to get rehabbed and get stronger and bigger in that area. But it's going to happen a third year in a row next year. There's a wear and tear factor here, and then we get back into load management because they didn't load manage him this year. He played a lot of games, and he played a lot of minutes, and he played back-to-backs, which they did not do the 2 prior years. So I'm not going to bang on him. I think he's a tremendous complete ball player. I think he's a fine teammate, but he's got 200,000 miles on those tires. It's a big issue. And yeah, I've always liked Bobby Portis. Sometimes I may not like Draymond Green, but you need that type of persona because when you get a troublemaker on your roster who's got he makes everybody else play bigger and play with a lot more ferocity. So I don't know if they could get Bobby Portis out of Milwaukee, but he's been on the free agent market before. They need something. There's a chemistry thing there that they need.
Like Bill Laimbeer, maybe, someone like that.
Well, Laimbeer was an established starter. Punch you in the mouth. Thank you.
But, talking here about street fighting, your eye looks a lot better. It's almost no discoloration.
Yeah.
Is it feeling better?
No, it feels fine. It just looked really, really bad. And for those of you who want to pile on me, no, I did not get in a fight with a Raider fan or a Dodger fan. But if I had, one or both would still be in the hospital. But thank you for asking.
Well, didn't Kawhi get a lot of crap when he was in San Antonio when he was hurt, and people said he wasn't really hurt that bad, and they thought he was dogging it?
Well, I think there was some insinuations, but you never know. I mean, the injuries are really significant, and when you have to max effort it every trip up and down the floor, and you got an ankle, you got a knee. There's always the fear factor. If I go up and I come down, am I going to re-injure it again? You have to get through that emotional hurdle when you're hurt. So I hardly ever criticize athletes unless you've been there and been hurt and tried to go through the long, lonely road of rehab. And then when you think you're healthy, then you got to go over that hurdle that I can do this without re-injuring myself. And in some cases, when you see these pitchers who blow their elbow ligament out a second time, it's catastrophic emotionally, because that's another 14 to 16 months out of your life. And rehab, John, rehab is the most lonely road in the world, because you're not part of the team, even though you are part of the team.
But you're getting paid.
Well, that's true.
And that makes life a lot easier.
All except talk show host. Next question.
Okay, let's go here. Speaking of Kawhi, Sam Crow says, hey, tell him to come back to the Raptors, LOL.
Well, the problem we've got there in Canada is that they strip mine the roster. Have they spent their money wisely? I don't know. But, Kawhi's gone. Fred VanVleet is gone. And look, his influence in Houston was just absolutely phenomenal. So there's different ways to do business. Sometimes you can't keep the players either, either because of salary cap or a guy didn't want to play in Canada, which is, to me is weird. But I'd move to Canada right now. But this situation with these guys leaving, some of it's finances, some of it's the U.S. Canadian dollar exchange rate, and some of it's just don't want to live there. I want to come back home.
There's a lot of Raptors, or former Raptors, now scattered.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Pascal Siakam is on Indiana.
What a great player he is.
And then Kyle Lowry, I think, is with the 76ers now. So it's interesting to see how they all move around.
You think about 2 years ago today, before I ever first met you, think about the roster the Raptors had 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And virtually all those guys, including Pascal, gone to the win. And Pascal's made the whole bloody difference in Indiana. Holy cow, what a player he is.
Yeah, tremendous.
And we don't get to see Toronto Raptor basketball very much, but boy, that's big time, 6'7". But that's a big time guy with a big payday coming.
Yeah, Toronto is a huge city, a huge opportunity for players. Okay, this is from Derek, and he says, the banner between you two is fantastic.
Yeah, two dumbasses don't have any place to go, just sitting here exchanging gunfire. Thank you.
Okay, Roberto says, Lee, since you are bleeping brilliant, what would you do or say to Bogarts to get him going?
This sounds weird. I mean, if his best game is at shortstop, then let him play his best game at shortstop and move Hassan Kim back to second. I'm a little surprised that Kim is struggling so badly. I think the scouting reports say you got to pitch him differently because we now know what he can do. I mean, H.S. Kim had a phenomenal season last season. But if they could get Bogey and if they could get H.S. back to what they were hitting a year ago, boy, this team would be pretty damn good. Right now it's a little bit streaky. So now that means maybe you won't have your best guy at shortstop because your best guy winds up playing second base. But last I checked, Hassan Kim got a Gold Glove at second.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you revert back to play to the strengths of both those guys and hope you can trigger them back?
Yeah, I mean, you would normally think that defense wouldn't affect the way you hit, but if he's just not in the right kind of zone, he's kind of mentally off, that could throw everything. But when Xander was playing for the Red Sox, he wasn't a leadoff hitter. Where did he bat in the lineup? Probably in the 5 or the 4 hole, right?
I don't know if he was 2 or 5, but nice statistics, Fenway Park. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a really good hitter.
If we had Bogarts and Tatis and Machado
and Kim.
Well, just those, let's just say the 3 big guys, if they were all performing at their career average, and then you've got Kim coming back and you got the young guys like Jackson Merrill.
And you got Croney.
Yeah, Croney, they hit that grand slam. The Padres could be really good, but they're still sputtering.
On we go.
On we go. And let's go here to Justin. Says, should the Chargers get a quarterback to replace Easton Stick? Stick has proven he can't win, and it seems he has no upside. What do you think, Hacksaw?
Well, the kid is intellectual. The kid is really athletic. Kid just couldn't get him into the end zone last season when he had to play after Justin Herbert got hurt. But they brought him back. They know better than I do, although I got opinions on everything. They know better because they're in practice. They have all the video of him. They're in the classroom work. So I think he stays there. And remember, when he played at the end of last season, they had a whole bunch of skill guys hurt. Was not a complete team, and the running game had virtually gone away because Austin Eckler wasn't Austin Eckler. So you can go rent event. You know, they had Chase Daniel there, lifetime journeyman.
Oh yeah,
he was there for backup for I don't know 7 or 8 years. When he had to play, he didn't produce. So I think they think there's enough upside. And now with this new offense coming in, which is going to have components of run, pass, option, RPO, maybe that fits Easton Stick just a little bit better. But the success of this team is not going to spin on the backup quarterback, trust me.
Well, if they're going to need a backup quarterback, how about trading for Michael Penix, right? He's going to be on the bench in Atlanta.
Yeah, not trading him in Atlanta. Boy, Atlanta's taking a lot of heat right now.
Okay, let's go here to Derek. He says, hey, the Guardian Caps are great, especially if they go to 18 games. It'll be great for their long-term health.
And like Mr. Marketing said here, we'll have the Guardian Caps, but they won't look weird because they'll put a cover over the Guardian Caps with team logo.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But they do look weird. When I was the voice of the Seahawks, I met with Mike Holmgren, the coach, and we were just talking about rules and stuff. This is in training camp. And we got talking about safety, et cetera. And he showed me schematics of what they were doing with shoulder pads and with helmets. Now, this goes back to early 2000s when Mike was there building a Super Bowl team with Seattle. And he said they should adopt this. These schematics work. I'm not going to say they're styrofoam shoulder pads, but they weren't the hard plastic. Mm-hmm. But there was give to them, and it protected the guy. And the helmets had give. They were not the hard plastic that we have. But the union wouldn't sign off. The players bitched about them, said that doesn't look like prototype football helmets, and that looks strange. And who cares if it's strange? Everybody's going to be wearing the same gear. But Mike said they should do it, but it never happened up until the Guardian Caps.
Do you remember back in the day, like 30 years ago, NFL players seemed to have bigger shoulder pads? Mm-hmm. You know, the running backs and even the like Ronnie Lott as a cornerback. I remember he had this like shell around him that was much larger than what we see from players today.
They got heavier, which meant players could not run as fast. They caused injury, some of the real hard plastic things. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the size of the shoulder pads that Earl Campbell wore.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Earl Campbell, sweep right, turns the corner at 245 pounds with, I don't know what those shoulder pads weighed, 6 to 8 pounds. Man, the force of those blows was just brutal. So that's been downsized, but guys want to be faster and quicker now. Mm-hmm. And the new stuff gives them protection. But what Holmgren showed me, and this goes back 20 years, man, that would save lives. That would save careers. That would save concussions, I think, and it never got adopted. Now, the Guardian Cap shells, big step forward, I think.
Yeah, I think so, too. I like it. Hey, let's go here to Bobby commenting on Dion. He says, we coming, LOL.
Okay, so Bobby's out in the back parking lot by himself. He's the first one on our fans forum that sides with Dion, that Dion can do anything he wants to any of his players. Trust me, when they get in and they get killed in the Big 12 again this year, there's going to be somewhere this bill's going to come due with whether or not he can do it, whether he's a good coach or not. Aside from the bluster and the reality TV shows, you got to win. And then there will be accountability of what you've done to all these football players. And now it's 2 years in a row he's run off so many guys, 53 the first year and 30 after spring ball this year. That's 83 players in 2 years that we don't need you. I don't think it's the right way to do business, but anybody else out there wants to stand in the parking lot, have a beer with Bobby? Go ahead. Join us in Fans Forum.
How many players have gone in and out of the transfer portal just at San Diego State? I mean, it's not 83, but it's
47 since December.
Yeah.
But I don't think Sean Lewis ran those guys off. Those are guys that said, I'm not staying because the offense is going to be different, or I was recruited by Brady. I mean, every one of those players went through one-on-one intro meetings with Sean Lewis, and a whole pile of them just jumped into the transfer portal, which stunned me because I know what that coach has done. Why would you not hang to see if you could be part of it and see how exciting this bloody thing is going to be offensively? Now he's got half a team. I mean, it's amazing. He had the UT ran a note. He had 102 players on the roster the last game against Fresno State. 102. And there's only 55 left. Yeah. And it's not that he ran these kids off. These kids have been tampered with, or these kids said, not for me, didn't like the sales pitch, or thought the offense was stupid, or they're obviously changing the defense. Virtually all coaches are gone, with the exception of Ryan Lindley. I'm just kind of surprised. I'm disappointed for him because, man, he's got so many holes at such a late date.
See, I wonder if a lot of the young players that are coming in that are 18 and 19 years old have no idea what Sean Lewis did in the MAC, and the innovation he brought. They probably think was Deion's offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And they know he's kind of a real high energy guy, and he's got these innovative offensive schemes, but maybe they don't trust that Sean Lewis's plan is going to work.
But that's for the coaches to make work. Mm-hmm. And by the way, just Google what that man did at Kent State. You can go find a video. You'll be awed. And the Mid-American is kind of like the Mountain West.
Yeah, it is. You
got a quarterback and a pile of receivers, and you throw the crap out of the ball all the time. I don't know how you defend that. You can't put a defense in place in 4 days practice when you're playing San Diego State the fourth week of the season. You just can't. I mean, the war of attrition between his skill guys and the other guy's defense going to be fascinating to watch. That being said, 41 have left that I know of.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the transfer portal is just blowing up college sports. Hey, let's go to John here, and he says, could the Angels please take Patrick Corbin too? Signed, all Nats fans.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, Corbin's a big investment, and he got hurt. I mean, there's so many pitchers who've come through the surgery in the last 2 years. I've not been able to do an update because I've had no time as to what's now happened as we're into the second month of the baseball season. But I would bet we have probably a combined total of 40 major league pitchers and minor league pitchers who've had elbow surgery or shoulder surgery since the start of spring training. 40. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And kids are having it in high school, too, now.
Exactly.
So it's amazing. But talking about Angel pitching, one of the complaints from Angel fans is that Artie Moreno never signs free agent pitchers. And that's why the pitching has been such a wreck for all these years.
Well, they've drafted pitchers, and Reed Detmers looks like he's an ace. It took him 3 years of getting shelled in the majors. He's become a really good starter. I think his ERA is 1.51.
Wow.
Patrick Sandoval, who had a decent season last year, looked like he was emerging to be a potential ace, and he's gotten smoked this year, and he's angry at everybody because everybody's criticizing him. They had a draft 2 years ago. They drafted 21 pitchers in a row. I think the only one that's gotten here yet is Chase Silseth, and he's hurt. He's on the DL with either forearm or elbow. So it just takes time and a little bit of luck to get pitchers to come. And Artie Moreno, I'm sure he'd pay state-of-the-art money for 3 years, but he's not given pitchers 5 years or 7 years. They talk back and forth with Blake Snell, and I was told it was a 3-year offer, which was really good money. If it was 3 years, 90, Snell could have been in Anaheim, and then he would have made a difference with Reed Detmers. But he waited, went to San Francisco. Now he's hurt. He's had 3 crap starts in a row, and the Giants are on the hook for $31 million the first year. And if he doesn't have a good season, he'll opt in just to stay in San Francisco, collect another $30 million. So the length of contract is a big issue. The injury factor could happen tonight, could happen a year from tonight, might never ever happen. That's still out there in the equation. You got to pay attention to all that stuff.
Yeah, I think maybe Artie Moreno's thinking he dodged a bullet by not signing Blake Snell. But who's the free agent that's been doing great is Seth Lugo.
Oh, 5-1, 1.50 ERA.
Yeah.
Kansas City, surprise team in Major League Baseball because of the Padre refugees.
Amazing. Yeah, so good on Seth Lugo, who the Mets didn't think was good enough to be a starter, and he's just killing it.
And the Padres did not want to give him 3 years, $45 million. That Kansas City gave him 3 years, $45 million. But Seth Lugo's had a good year and a third in his baseball career coming from the New York Mets.
Awesome.
Okay, how about a couple more here before we go to social media, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay, let's go to social media now, actually. And let's go here, and we'll talk about the Falcons. And this is from Corey, and he says, I hope he responds to this, talking about you, Hacksaw. If you look at the breakdown for Cousins' contract, really it's a 2-year deal in which they have an offense which they expect to put up 25-plus points every game. Their secondary isn't awful, and Raheem Morris is one of the best defensive play callers in the business. So not worrying about the defense when you have a Hall of Fame talented quarterback just sitting there is okay.
Well, they do have the tight end pits, and they do have wide receivers. They do have a stud running back head into his second year, and they've drafted offensive linemen. They have 0 pass rush. Cousins puts up great numbers, has made a great deal of money, but has he ever done anything come postseason? Not that I know of. So that's an issue. They needed pass rushing. If they would have taken the defensive end out of Alabama, they would have gotten a pass rushing defensive end, or they could have taken the pass rusher from Florida State, Verse. That would have helped solve them. They didn't need Michael Penix immediately. There'll always be a quarterback you can get later. Now, there's a sidebar story that's just leaked out that the Falcons at 8 had a deal in place with the Jets at 10 that involved future picks going to the Jets. Jets would have traded back, and Atlanta would have taken a pass rusher had they gotten the 10th pick. And after they chose Penix, the Jets backed out of the deal. So maybe there were two transactions that Atlanta was about to make, which would have meant less criticism. But as they stand here right now, please tell me, they have any pass rush in Atlanta? I don't think so. If you have a pass rush, how are you going to stay in games even if Kirk Cousins throws for 4,500 yards? So, hey, Corey, that's my answer. I stand by what I believe.
I saw that bit in the Best 15 this morning about how that trade went south and they reneged on it. But I was interpreting that originally that maybe Penix would have been dealt to the Jets as part of it, and then that trade fell through. But then again, the Jets wouldn't need another quarterback because they have Aaron Rodgers.
Well, for the future, but you would not take Penix at 10 in New York. You'd take wide receiver. You'd take offensive tackle, which they eventually did. Mm-hmm. I think they took the kid from Penn State, Ashanu. So they had a deal, didn't work. I'm not sure who, is the deal because Penix was the guy, or was a deal the Jets got cold feet and looked at some other situations?
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little hockey history, and this is with Fate Hand Logic. It says, there was no original six. There were 6 teams from the early 40s to 1967, but there were other teams that existed before that.
All right, I understand if you want to talk about the Montreal Maroons and the Ottawa Silver Senators or whatever they were called, and the team out in Vancouver. But I'm talking modern day hockey, just to be more specific. It was, quote, the original 6. But I got a question for you. I'm going to throw this curveball at you. Don't foul it off and don't take a strike. So you asked me last week about goaltending, and I mentioned the word Vezina Trophy.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Well, Vezina Trophy is the goaltender's award for the year. It might be Connor Hellebuck up in Winnipeg. It may be one other goaltender. It was named for George Vezina. George Vezina was a great goaltender way back in the days. Had to be the 30s and 40s. Might have been Montreal, might have been Chicago, might have been both. Original 6. Do you know what his nickname was? You've never heard this. I know you've never heard this. And this is the strangest nickname I've ever heard. His nickname was the Chicoutimi Cucumber.
What?
He was from Chicoutimi, Quebec. And he became a goaltender with Les Canadiens. And he was tall and willowy, and he looked like a cucumber. That's where the nickname came from. It's absolutely amazing.
That city name reminds me of like Schenectady or something like
Chicoutimi.
that. Yeah, so it's
French province.
Probably some Indian native kind of a thing there. That's something. I mean, the NHL playoffs were just fantastic last night.
Unless you're a Kings fan.
Yeah, the Kings came up short, but they had the lead there for a while, didn't they?
They played their ass off, and David Rittich was making saves with bodies in front of him. It was just absolutely amazing. The most amazing guy is Connor McDavid. You watch him roll on the ice, and you watch him do what he does, going through defenses and circling the back of the net and putting the puck right on the crease for somebody to tap in. He and Draisaitl are just two phenomenal players. And the Kings, they got tough decisions to make. There's a huge outcalling in L.A. that they should fire Rob Blake. I don't think that's going to happen because he and Luc Robitaille are really tied at the hip philosophically and emotionally. So I don't think Blake's in trouble. They're stuck with some contracts. The Pierre-Luc Dubois trade with Winnipeg has just turned out to be a disaster like it did for Winnipeg, getting him from Columbus. They got a lot of guys making $8 million that didn't play up to $8 million standards, and Kings played their hearts out. And what they did here at home in the 5th game against Edmonton, they out-hit them, they outshot them, they just could not put the puck in the net, and it was a 1-0 loss. And they came back last night, and they tied almost got back in the game late, and their goaltending was tremendous. So they got some tough decisions to make. I don't know how they're going to get out of this cap issue because now they got all these big contracts. I'm not so sure many people want. So a little bit of a disappointment. And I thought that thing, they've been building for 2 to 3 years. I thought they were ready to take this next step. doggone Edmonton is right there in front of them again. I guess I shouldn't wear my Oilers jersey here to do this podcast because, Canada will probably get up in arms and Kings fans will too. So they got work to be done. They got to reconstruct that roster a little bit. And, of course, down the road, the Ducks are just in a massive rebuild. My God, it's going to take forever.
What do you think of, well, first of all, the Oilers? I like their jerseys. That orange and blue and that logo that looks like the dripping oil.
Real slick, yes.
That's good look. But the Kings uniforms, I think, are really boring. Well, go back to the purple, the color of royalty.
I agree. Purple and gold, to me, back in the Miracle on Manchester era, back in the Roger Vachon, Marcel Dion, Dave Taylor days, that's cool. But, when they got Gretzky, they changed the scope. And for some reason, the sexy color had something to do with the Outlaws, the Raiders, had to be silver and black. Well, I never liked it. I liked the logo, but I like the Crown Quest. If I could find a jersey with the crown, I would buy it and I would wear it proudly.
Wear it here on the podcast.
Yeah, big guy wear everything else on the podcast, and the fashion designers out there will call us and criticize us in Fans Forum. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our extended Thursday broadcast. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. You got projects in San Diego, go see these good people. And by North County Eye Center. We're all going to need help for their eyes when that time comes. Think North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. John, deep breath. Have a great sports weekend. We'll see you back here with a Monday bonus podcast.
Looking forward to it, Lee. Lots of NBA and NHL to watch these days.
And enjoy the Kentucky Derby, the 150th run for the Roses. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.